I'm Agnes Delaney. I'm 66 years old, and this was the Christmas that opened my eyes to everything I'd been too tired, too trusting, and too proud to see. It was cold that night in Seattle. The rain had turned into glittering frost on the rooftops, and the city sparkled like it knew how much money was being poured into the party I was walking into. I'd just come off an afternoon shift at the clinic in Eugene, made the 4-hour bus ride north, and changed in the bathroom of a gas station just off the highway. My dress was navy blue, a thrift store find from 2 years ago. It fit well enough, but the hem had started to fray. I pinned it from the inside and hoped the lighting would be kind. Nathan's home didn't feel like a home. It looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Clean lines, glass staircases, white orchids, and a towering tree lit in symmetrical gold. I stood near the fireplace holding a glass of cider and trying not to feel like a guest in my own son's life. The women glided by in cocktail dresses and heels I could never walk in. Their laughter was sharp and practiced. My heels pinched. My feet ached. And for a moment I thought maybe I should have stayed home and called in my holiday wishes. Brielle saw me before Nathan did. She moved through the room like she was hosting a charity gala, not a family gathering. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She wore silver silk delicate earrings and a diamond bracelet that shimmered every time she raised her glass. She gave me a quick hello, then turned to air kiss a woman in fur. I stood alone for 20 minutes before Nathan finally made his way across the room. He looked like everything I had worked for. Tall, sharp, polished, hair slicked back suit, pressed glass of scotch in hand. He hugged me with one arm, grinned, and said it like a joke he thought was warm. "Enjoying the $5,000 a month, Mom. I hope you're treating yourself." My body stiffened. The noise around us faded. 5,000 what? I looked up at him. His smile didn't change, but the world behind my eyes spun. My heart thudded. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. "Honey," I finally managed. "What 5,000s?" Nathan laughed. "The one I've been sending you every month." "Since what?" 3 years now. I looked at him and then at Brielle. She had paused near the tree, a canapé halfway to her mouth. Her hand trembled. She didn't eat. She stared at me with wide, frozen eyes. Then she blinked and turned away. I gripped Nathan's arm. My fingers were shaking. "Sweetheart, I'm still working. 2 jobs. I'm not getting any money from you. I never have." For a moment, Nathan's face didn't register anything. Then slowly it shifted. Confusion. Then something else. His eyes followed mine back to Brielle. Her gaze met mine across the room. Her mouth hung open. Not in shock. In realization. In exposure. And then for just a second, I saw something crack in her expression. A flicker of fear. Not of me, but of the truth. I turned back to Nathan, but he was already stepping away from me, walking toward his wife. I stood there with my cider, my old dress, and my aching feet. And the pieces started to fall. The missed calls, the distance, the assumption that I was being taken care of. 3 years, 3 jobs. Sleepless nights, skipped medications, bills shuffled like cards to keep the lights on. And all this time he thought he was helping. All this time someone had made sure he didn't see me at all. After the party, I took the bus home in silence. 4 hours back to Oregon. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every mile that passed only added to the weight in my chest. That single sentence from Nathan kept looping in my mind like a broken clock. 5,000 a month. The number sounded made up, extravagant, impossible. But the way he said it, So casual, so sure. That hurt the most. When my husband Mark died, Nathan was 13. It was a heart attack, sudden and cruel. One minute we were packing leftovers from a weekend barbecue, and the next I was alone in the ER holding a cold hand that had once held mine through every storm. Mark had life insurance, but it wasn't much. Just enough to cover the funeral and 2 months of bills. After that, it was up to me. I went back to nursing full-time. Graveyard shifts, 12-hour stretches, double weekends. I picked up private care gigs when I could. Home visits, Alzheimer's patients, hospice. I learned how to sleep standing up and how to smile when I was running on black coffee and half a sandwich. Nathan never knew how tight things got. That was the point. He had band practice, science camp, field trips to Portland. I said yes to all of it. I pawned my wedding ring the year he needed braces. I lied about loving canned soup. I wore thrift store scrubs with pride and pretended the arthritis didn't wake me every morning at 5. When he got into Stanford, I cried for an hour in the kitchen. Not just from pride, but fear. I didn't know how I'd pay for it. He got a partial scholarship, but the rest, that was me. I took out loans I'm still paying on. I worked holidays and skipped birthdays. I remember sitting in the break room on Christmas Eve, wrapping his care package with latex gloves still on. He called me that night and said the turkey at his roommate's house was dry. I said I'd saved him a piece of mine. I hadn't cooked at all. After graduation, he got a job at a startup in Seattle. His first paycheck was more than I made in a month. I was proud. So proud I thought my heart would burst. He sent flowers on Mother's Day. He called on my birthday. And then came Brielle. She was beautiful, sharp, the kind of woman who always looked like she had somewhere better to be. I met her once before the wedding. She commented on my dress, said it was vintage, but the way she said it made me feel like a misplaced antique. After that, things changed. Calls slowed. Visits stopped. Nathan said he was busy. I believed him. I kept working. At 63, I left the hospital and took on part-time shifts at a local clinic. 2 days a week at the front desk. The rest of the time, I cleaned houses. Quiet work. Hard work. But it paid enough to keep my little apartment, my car, my medication. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for anything. I thought that was dignity. But as I sat on the cold bus ride home staring at the fogged-up window, I realized how alone I had really been. For 3 years, I'd carried everything on my back, thinking Nathan had just drifted away like adult children do. I thought he'd stopped caring because he'd grown into his own world. I told myself that's what independence looked like. I was wrong. I was working 70 hours a week while my son thought I was being taken care of. I was clipping coupons for groceries while he sent thousands of dollars to an account I didn't know existed. I went through winter with a broken space heater, wearing 3 layers to bed while Brielle vacationed in Aspen with what should have been mine. I tried to remember the last real conversation I had with my son. Not a birthday message or a text. An actual talk. It had been 2 Christmases ago. He called to say they wouldn't be coming down. Too much going on. I said I understood. I lied. That night I went through my checkbook. I added up my earnings, my bills, my debts. Then I pulled out every envelope from Nathan that I'd kept. There were a few. Birthday cards with pre-written messages. Fancy stationery. One even had gold foil. But never a check. Never a mention of money. I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand and took out an old photo. Nathan, age 5, holding a pine cone like it was treasure. That little boy was mine. I raised him with everything I had. I didn't need repayment, but I never thought he'd forget me. Not like this. Something cracked in me that week. Not anger. Not yet. Just the quiet realization that I'd been living inside someone else's lie, and I had survived it. Not with help, not with support, just with sheer will. I was tired, and for the first time I wanted more. 3 days after the party, Nathan showed up at my apartment with a folder so thick it looked like it might burst. He didn't knock like he used to. He tapped lightly and waited like someone unsure of his place. I opened the door and saw the guilt all over him. His eyes were tired, his shoulders slouched. For a moment, I almost softened. But then I remembered the last 3 years and the weight I'd carried alone. He came in and set the folder on my kitchen table. We sat in silence for a moment, the way people do when they know the truth will hurt. Then he opened it. Bank statements, transfer log screenshots. The money had been going out $5,000 at a time like clockwork. Every month. To an account labeled under my name. But the address wasn't mine. It belonged to a P.O. box on the other side of Seattle. The phone number linked to it was unfamiliar. Nathan pointed to a line at the bottom of the printout. "That's where it went," he said. "Brielle set it up. Said it was easier for you. Said you didn't want to be overwhelmed by financial decisions." I stared at the papers. I saw my name typed in clean, formal font. I saw a signature that wasn't mine. I wasn't shocked. Not anymore. I was past that. I felt something colder settle in. It wasn't sadness. It was the absence of sadness, a kind of hollow clarity. Nathan kept talking. "She said you were proud, that you didn't want to ask. She said it was best if I didn't bring it up, that you'd feel humiliated." I believed her. I nodded, quietly. My eyes never left the folder. He pulled out a second stack of papers. Emails. Some printed, some from screenshots. He said he'd found them on a shared drive Brielle forgot to lock. He hesitated, then pushed them across the table. "You should read these, Mom." I didn't want to, but I did. The first was between Brielle and her sister. It was short. Brie bragging about how easily Nathan had fallen for her story. She wrote, "All I have to do is mention how broke his mom is and he wires money like magic. He thinks he's saving her. He's really funding my skin treatments." The next was worse. A thread with her best friend. They joked about my old shoes, my hands. One message read, "Agnes is basically furniture now. Outdated. Present but not noticed. Perfect cover." I didn't react. I didn't speak. I just turned page after page. More than 50 emails. Lies. Mockery. Strategy. At some point, I stopped reading and just stared. Not because I didn't care, but because I saw the game. The precision. The patience. It hadn't been carelessness. It had been a plan. Nathan looked wrecked. He kept whispering apologies. He reached for my hand once and pulled back when I didn't move. I didn't pull away. I just let the moment pass. "She made me think you were okay," he said. "She made me feel like I was doing the right thing." I nodded again. This wasn't about him anymore. Not fully. This was about me and what I was going to do next. I told him I needed copies of everything. Every page, every login, every record. He agreed without question. For the first time, I saw something different in his face. Not pity, not guilt, respect. When he left, I spent the rest of the evening sorting the documents. I labeled each stack. One for the bank, one for the attorney, one for myself. I made tea. I lit a candle. I opened a notebook and started writing. I wasn't sure what I was building, but I knew it was mine, and I was going to finish it. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to document everything, brick by brick, lie by lie, until the truth stood tall enough to cast a shadow Brielle could not walk out from. That night I slept for 5 hours. It was the longest sleep I'd had in months. It was a quiet Tuesday when I got the call from Patricia, the forensic accountant Nathan had hired. She sounded calm, but I could tell she didn't want to share what she'd found over the phone. We met the next morning at 9 o'clock at her office in downtown Portland. She slid a manila folder across the table and waited as I opened it. Inside were records tied to a piece of land in Colorado. My husband Mark had inherited it decades ago. I thought it had been lost to taxes long ago. Turns out someone had been paying those taxes all along. Brielle. She had maintained the property under my name, filed maintenance claims, and even commissioned an environmental assessment. It was remote land, forested, forgotten. But the state had just approved a new highway expansion, and that land sat right in the middle of the planned route. The government had offered to buy it through eminent domain. Estimated payout $1.6 million. Patricia looked at me carefully. Legally, the land was mine, but Brielle had created a paper trail that suggested she had been managing it for years. If left unchallenged, she might have had a case. I didn't flinch. I asked what I needed to sign. Patricia smiled and said she already had the forms prepared. By the end of that week, the paperwork was filed. The state confirmed ownership. My name, not hers. I didn't call Nathan. I didn't rush to share the victory. I sat with it for a while. I thought about what it meant. Not the money, not the property, but the fact that Mark had left me something after all, and I had protected it. 2 weeks later, we met again. Me, Nathan, Patricia, and Brielle. Her lawyer sat beside her, young, sharp, but uncomfortable. We were in a small conference room with glass walls and too much silence. Brielle looked thinner, not fragile, just empty. She spoke first. She called it a misunderstanding. She said she meant well. She said she wanted to protect Nathan from feeling guilty. I listened. Then I said what I came to say. I told her I didn't want her apology. I didn't want her excuses. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I looked at Nathan and said he didn't need to leave his wife for me. He needed to leave if he wanted to find himself again. I told him I didn't want his guilt. I wanted his presence, a real one. A month later, he moved out. The divorce took time, but he never looked back. He started calling more, not out of duty, just because he wanted to. The money from the land came in that spring. I used a portion to buy a small home near the mountains in Idaho. 1-story wraparound porch, quiet neighbors. I planted hydrangeas outside the window and learned to make blackberry jam. One morning, a letter came. No return address. The handwriting was Brielle's. Inside was a single page. She wrote that she never knew what it felt like to have a mother who protected her, that she envied what Nathan and I once had, that she tried to erase me because it hurt too much to see someone so loved. She said she wasn't asking for forgiveness, just understanding. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the back of my recipe drawer. I didn't hate her. I didn't pity her either. Some people break things because they're already broken. That didn't make them harmless, but it made them human. Now every morning I sit on my porch with a cup of coffee and watch the sun rise over the ridgeline. Nathan visits on Sundays. He brings pie from the bakery down the road and stories from his new job. We talk like two people who had to lose something to know what mattered. I don't need to be needed. I just like being seen. I didn't win in court. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't even demand an apology. I simply reclaimed my story. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm living inside it.